There we go. Alrighty, what is up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Renegade Roundtable here on our YouTube channel. I am Jeffrey Kirby. I am obviously solo for now. Hopefully, here in the next few minutes, we will be joined by Dan Meiningen, also known as Packer fan Dan Meiningen from 92.3 The Fan here in Cleveland. That is hopefully going to be the case. He did tell me he was going to be running a couple minutes late, so we're hoping here shortly, within the next 5 or 10 minutes or so, he's going to be joining us here today. Obviously, we got a huge week. Not a game. We don't have a game to break down that we just played the previous week. So we just had our bye. But we do have a huge playoff game going for us here this Sunday in Cleveland as the Pittsburgh Steelers do take on the Cleveland Browns. And obviously we will get into this a little bit more when Dan does get in with us. I'm obviously, if you see me glancing this way, I'm just making sure I got my Zoom ready to go for when he does join. But and obviously, what's up, everyone? I hope everyone's having a great day. I hope everyone's having a great Thursday. And we're almost here. We're almost to Friday. It's almost the weekend. And we got a really good. Speaking of which, beforehand, we have a really good matchup tonight on Thursday Night Football. Cardinals and Packers. That's a very good game that we got going for us. But yeah, going into a little bit of this Browns-Steelers game this Sunday. TJ Black Gaming says we need to stop the run, and that's got to be our main objective. Yes, because here's the thing. Here's the issue with their offense, and this is looking at it from a Pittsburgh perspective, or anyone else who you are, or whoever else they are playing against. Obviously, we understand that they're a run-first team. They're going to pound the rock, and their goal is to try to control the time of possession. But here's the thing, though, and here's what's funny about this. So obviously, looking here, Nick Chubb, he was limited today in practice with a calf injury. Most of us expect for him to be playing on Sunday. And then obviously Kareem Hunt, he's on IR. He's not going to be there on Sunday. And also, we got to take into consideration, too, now. They have a guy in Dearness Johnson who in the two games he's had significant playing time, 2020 against the Cowboys and last Thursday against the Broncos. He's made the most of his time and the play time that he's had. Now, like you said, we got to stop the run. The issue with that is they could kill you with the play action. But the issue now you run with that is, if you're Cleveland, which hopefully we're going to get into here shortly with Dan, what quarterback is going to be playing? Because we don't know right now. There's a whole lot of speculation that Baker Mayfield was limited today trying to practice. He was the only person at the Cleveland Browns training facility in shoulder pads. He's trying to get used to throwing the football. So do you go with a guy like Baker Mayfield who is hurt, or do you say the hell with it and then you let him sit for another week and you play Case Keenum? Now, if you're Keith Butler, if you are Mike Tomlin, I don't necessarily think on defense that the game plan changes all that much. It's not like it's not like it's Joe Flacco. He's not playing, so now it's RG3 playing. If Baker Mayfield plays, we're gonna have a ball with him. I'll get into that here in a second because I think it's a little bit more. I think it's a tiny bit more complicated than that, and I'll explain to that here momentarily. You have. I actually just lost my train of thought for a second. But actually, I'll get to your point here now, TJ. If Baker Mayfield plays, he's going to have a ball. I would say, I forgot what I was. Okay, I'll finish what I was going to say before. Here in a second after I finish this comment. I think part of it is, yes, we have TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, who TJ Watt is a very, very good pass rusher. Most, including me, I will say best pass rusher in the NFL. Some will say second best or anything like that, but we understand all in all he's a top-notch guy as a pass rusher. And one thing too is one way that they beat us last year in the playoffs, especially, and you noticed this, is they kind of beat us at our own game. And what I mean by that is they beat us with the quick pass. And that was obviously with Baker being healthy. Now, I think if you're Cleveland, you're going to want to do that because you're going to try to keep Baker Mayfield upright if that's who you go with. You do not want any of these guys touching Baker Mayfield. A lot of the media in Cleveland, because obviously I am from Cleveland, so I do, especially this week, I've been really paying attention to what they have to say because I'm interested to see how they're really looking at this game compared to, other in terms of main media. They're not taking TJ Watt lightly, as you shouldn't, and they're basically saying yes, you must protect Baker Mayfield at all costs if you want a chance to win this football game, or if you're in a situation that if you're going to play Baker Mayfield. Now, again, back to what I was trying to say before. It's not like it's your goal. You have Joe Flacco as your quarterback, and now you have a guy like RG3 who's mobile. And this is how you're looking at this if you're Keith Butler and if you're Mike Tomlin. These are guys that aren't. They're similar play styles in terms of how they're going to play in this offense. Baker is a little bit more mobile, but he's not necessarily that threat of running the football. He's mobile in his own way, but I don't think he's going to necessarily say, oh, now you have to plan, now you got to have a spy on him. It's not like you're going up against Lamar Jackson where you always have to make sure that you have a spy on him so he can't run out. Don't get me wrong, he can beat you with his legs. But you have to take into consideration again is now it's looking like this is going to be the first time in a couple weeks that they're going to have both their starting tackles. Jedrick Wills, who has been dealing with an ankle injury since week 1, he's back. And then Jack Conklin, he did not play. He hasn't played the last 2 games, and he's been limited at practice. They're looking like he's on the upward trend of playing, which that would be the guy that you would want to go up against, or that would be the guy that would be going up against T.J. Watt. And then another thing, too, to take into consideration, say he's not able to go. Their backup, Blake Hance, is also dealing with a knee injury, and he was limited today as well. So if you're Pittsburgh, obviously you're hoping that both those guys are not playing because they're the third guy that they would be playing, James Hudson. He's a guy that's he's a rookie, if I'm not mistaken. He did not look good in the games that he has played in. And this is a game where defense on both sides are going to be huge. Pittsburgh, they're supposed to be known as one of the better defenses in the NFL. Am I correct? Correct. You also see Cleveland, they've been very streaky when it comes to defenses this year. We've seen how the defense, we've seen, if you go back and look at how they played against the Chargers and against the Cardinals, and I understand those are 2 very potent offenses, but hear me out on this. They looked horrendous. Browns fans were calling, I'll get to that question here in 1 second, TJ. Both those games, the defense looked terrible, and Cleveland Browns fans were calling for Joe Woods' head. Now they've also played great. They look at the game against Minnesota, and that's a respectable offense. Kirk Cousins is a respectable quarterback. And obviously, and it looks like our man, our man Dan Meiningen is going to be joining us. So if you give me 1 second, let me get us edited out, and then as soon as he gets his video going, we will be. All right, give me 1 second, guys. Let me get you guys. All right. Sorry about that, guys. This is on air. Let me get you guys. Sorry about that, guys. This is what happens when stuff like this happens, but it's all good. All right. How you doing, Dan?
I'm well. How are you, Jeffrey?
I am doing good. Obviously, we were just talking for a little bit about, and TJ, I saw your comment. This will be one of the first questions that we will ask. For those who don't know, this is Dan Meiningen. He is the producer of Baskin and Phillips on 92.3 The Fan, also known as Packer fan Dan Meiningen.
That is correct. I have picked up that moniker along the way.
And obviously, your Green Bay Packers are playing tonight, and they are looking a little thin at wide receiver right now.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if they figured out if they could call in Jordy Nelson or James Jones, or maybe make a Jake Kumaro trade, bring him back in. I mean, for all I know, maybe Greg Jennings is available. I mean, what kind of shape is Donald Driver in? I know he's still living in Wisconsin. I mean, this all is on the table now.
One thing I will say, Donald Driver growing up was one of my favorite wide receivers. I don't know why. He was.
He was. Because he was the dirty work guy. He would do all the blocking. He was one of the best route runners on the planet. Like, he was so talented at all of those things, and it just made it so much fun to watch him. I mean, Favre loved him, and then he upped the Roger.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, this is a huge game for both teams coming into this week. We talked a little bit about the injuries. We'll get into a little bit more of that. We'll get into that a little bit more. I can't talk today. We did get a comment in the in our chat box saying, who needs this win more? And I'm interested to see who you think needs this win more. Because Cleveland Browns are coming off a 4-3, or coming off a win or 4-3, and Pittsburgh is 3-3, coming off the bye.
First, as well, I would like to apologize to everybody who's listening, and to you as well, Jeff, for running late. I apologize. We had a couple kids. I coach basketball. We had a couple kids whose rides didn't show up on time. So I apologize that I'm running late.
I let everyone know that you were going to be a couple minutes late. So and obviously you let me know in advance, so I wasn't too surprised.
Yeah, I said I apologize to everybody who's out there for that one.
It is all good.
Make sure, I don't want a bunch of 7th and 8th graders just waiting outside of school by themselves. So
yeah, hey, that's very responsible of you as a coach.
So, who needs this win more? I think right now it's Pittsburgh, just because of how the way the standings are, and we're starting to, the Browns haven't played a whole lot of division games. I think this is their first division game all season. So, that kind of stuff matters. I think it's Pittsburgh, at least right now. And now by that, I mean 3 weeks from now, if this heads south for the Browns and there are issues that come in between there, we could easily look back at this Pittsburgh game and go, oh my gosh, I wish they would have gotten up for this one. And I wish they would have been better. But I think right now, just the way the standings are and how everybody is bunched, not only in the AFC North, but the AFC in general, I think the Steelers might need this one a little more.
Yeah, I think one thing, too, that's really messing with the AFC is the fact that the emergence of Cincinnati, who you guys faced right after Cleveland, or right after Pittsburgh. Wow.
Oh, you're good there.
Yeah, and I think one thing, too, and I know your colleague, Ken Carman, who he's one of my favorites. I love him to death. And
Carman's the best.
And he made a good point earlier in the week as I was listening to them. You expected them to probably be what they are now in 2022. You didn't expect them to make this jump this year. And that's what's really messing with this, because going into this season, you're thinking, okay, Cincinnati's not necessarily going to, contend for the division, but they're not going to be the slouch that they were in 2019 when they ended up getting the first overall pick. And going into this, they could definitely mess some things around. They could definitely mess some people's schedule up. And Jamar Chase, oh boy, he has looked absolutely phenomenal. This is exactly what we saw last year with Justin Jefferson in Minnesota.
Yeah. These LSU receivers, man. Just draft LSU receivers. You'll be fine.
Well, you guys have two, and
I know.
And both of them are dealing with injuries. One of them is fans in Cleveland want him run out of town, and the other one absolutely loves.
It's funky. We'll get into that later. Let me hit the Bengals first, because I'll get distracted by all sorts of shiny objects.
I'm the same way.
So the thing with the Bengals that is the most surprising is the fact that the defense is good. Like, I went into this season looking at the Bengals roster and going like, okay, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, all Tyler Boyd you could throw in there, Joe Mixon, all of these different weapons, they're going to score points. They're going to go 4 wide spread. They're going to go 5 wide spread. They're going to score points. And the most surprising thing that has come is the fact that their defense, I mean, they brought in Hendrickson, which was kind of an under-the-radar move. Everybody thought he was a bit of a one-trick pony. They brought in Larry Ogunjobi, who everybody in Cleveland knows well and has played really well for them. The back end has played well. It's almost, I think they were 7th in defensive grade by Pro Football Focus, I want to say. And that was the part of this team that I had the biggest question on is they're going to score points. It's just, can their defense hold? And this year it's been, yes, they've become the sum of their parts. And we've hit the point now, and I watched them in the Packers game where, nobody wanted to win that game and nobody should have won that game. Like that one, if there was ever a game that we should have just thrown the flag and went tie, it was after all the missed field goals and just went, okay, nobody wins this game. Everybody gets a point. We go home. Like no one should suffer any longer. Yeah. So that was the turn, like the point where I was like, oh gosh, this Cincy defense is real. And then what they've been able to do from there, even into the Baltimore game last week, which, we were able to watch around here, that defense is legit. I mean, they did a really good job slowing down Lamar Jackson in an offense that's really potent. Mm-hmm. And that's the part of this. And is it a year early? I don't know if it's a year early. I don't know if it's 2 years early. I think the offense is where we thought. And it's just that other side of the ball is the part that's 2 years ahead of where it should be and lacking the high-end talent that we all thought it would take to bring them over the top. So it's part of the reason why, like, when you said who needs this win more, I went, because the way this Bengals team is playing, and I am a Ravens believer on top of that.
I am too. I hate to admit it, but.
Yeah, it's painful. It stinks, but like both teams, they both need this. And the funny part is the most complete team thus far has been the Bengals. Mm-hmm. I never thought we would be saying that this year.
Yeah, it's and one thing too, going into, like I said, you guys play them after Pittsburgh, so you don't play a divisional game for 8 weeks or 7 weeks, and then you go into now you're playing back-to-back divisional games, and then for us, for Pittsburgh, we already lost to them once. And speaking of which, I want to ask you a question about a particular loss that Cleveland had early this year against Kansas City, because I know in Pittsburgh. At least for me, I've looked at that Cincinnati loss a little bit different now, with hindsight being 2020 and seeing just how legit they are. With Kansas City and the struggles that they're having on defense and Patrick Mahomes not looking like the Patrick Mahomes that we all know and love, how are Cleveland fans feeling about that game right now?
So it's a lot of... hindsight is always 2020, and it's the same exact way that everybody felt at the end of last year when Chad Henne played hit the bootleg and then hit that pass for the first down in the playoffs, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, you can't stop Chad Henne." Like, that's kind of where we are on this game. Is you're starting to look back on it, and a lot of people. So you brought up the wide receivers that people want to, Odell, that some people want to run out of town. It's not as much that as it is the people who hate Baker Mayfield are using that game along with a couple others along the way to help prove their point of why they hate Baker Mayfield and why they don't think Baker Mayfield is the guy to lead this team over the top. That's what's really come out of this more than anything else is they go, oh my gosh, look at how bad that Kansas City defense is. And you mean to tell me we can only muster, I don't have the score in front of me. I think it was like 20 points or something like that. 25. Let me get the score of that. But like, you get the general idea that everybody else has been able to run up the score on these guys, and this team wasn't quite there. And there's always that whole The Browns are 4th in rushing rate, and yet everybody around here is like, they don't run the ball enough.
Yeah, that is one thing too. Because obviously, I don't think I've ever told you this. I'm from the Cleveland area.
Right on.
Yeah, I am about a half hour west of in Lorain County. So I am in that general area, and so obviously being a Steeler fan in Cleveland has always been hell, especially this week.
29. Them only putting 29.
I was just about to say 29. So you're able to, and they look great in that first half. You're looking at this and saying, "Oh, is this the revenge tour coming?" And then obviously we know Jamie Gillen. That's when the whole game changes. When he muffed that punt, and then things just basically went straight to hell.
Yeah, it all went into the toilet from there. And the Nick Chubb fumble, which Nick Chubb doesn't fumble.
Yeah,
like
the only other time I remember him ever fumbling was in that New England game in 2019, where that game was just a whole train wreck in itself. And because that was also right around the time where Baker Mayfield decided to shave his face 3 times in one game.
Yes, that is correct.
I believe that was the Denver game, because I remember listening to this live, the infamous Ken Carman going off after the guarantee win.
I remember. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about the fact that he shaved during that game.
He shaved his face 3 times in one game, and then the next morning, listening to Ken Carman at 6:00 in the morning, go berserk.
And it's so funny you bring that up, because that's one of those trivia questions in Browns history where you could throw the multiple choice in front of people of like, which Browns quarterback shaved 3 times in one game? A, Brady Quinn. B, Johnny Manziel. C, Derek Anderson. Like, D, Baker Mayfield. And nobody would get it right.
Yeah, well, I know they do their 2-second trivia. Maybe at this point, 5 years down the road, that might be one if Baker Mayfield is not the quarterback there. Or it could be what year did he do it, or what game, who are they playing, or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
Speaking of Baker Mayfield, obviously we understand he's dealing with the injury. Obviously Jay Glazer came out reported that he has that fractured humerus. And obviously we know that he's not necessarily, we're not going to see the Baker Mayfield everyone thought we were going to get this year. Obviously with the injury. When you're looking at this from a non-Browns fan perspective, I look at this as you have 1 in a good seasons and 1.5 mediocre to bad seasons. You were hoping that this year was going to be able to tell, is this the year? Are we going to be able to pay? Or is this going to finally be the guy that the Cleveland Browns pay X amount of doubt franchise quarterback money to? And now we don't know. And this is starting to feel like a situation of, not in terms of play, because let me say this. Baker Mayfield is playing 100 times better than Sam Darnold. But Sam Darnold got into the situation of he needed that 5th year that he's in right now to prove he's a franchise caliber quarterback, and obviously he started out well. Sam Darnold did. Now he's looking terrible and got benched for a guy that was in the XFL. Looking at this, how do you think the Cleveland Browns should continue to handle this contract? And I'll get into more of that here in a second. I don't want to make this a 5-minute question.
No, you're fine, because you're probably going to get a 5-minute answer, because it's complicated. I mean, it is. This is one of those situations that I think they're in this odd position where they actually have more time than people think they do before they have to make a commitment. Mm-hmm. Because you've got this year, they've already picked up the 5th-year option.
Correct.
If they want more time from there, they can always franchise tag him twice.
Yes.
So in reality, they've got 3 years to make this decision. If you think this year should just be ripped in 18 pieces and thrown in the trash can. And again, like everybody here, like I am firmly on Baker Island. I built a house on Baker Island a long time ago. It is holding up nicely. I am firmly there. I am not leaving Baker Island. But this shoulder injury is a thing. Mm-hmm. And it is definitely affecting him. And it's a torn labrum. It's a fractured humerus. It is going to continue to pop out of hinge, or the ball and socket joint is going to continue to pop out when he gets tackled, if he gets tackled that way. this doesn't go away until you go under the knife, and it's going to hurt. There was footage of him at practice where they had the harness where he couldn't move his left arm.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that's not going to go away. So I can tell you that the Browns organization, with the way that Andrew Berry runs this, and Kevin Stefanski and everybody else who's up there, they're going to take all the time that they want to make this decision. I do not believe it's one of those where it's like, well, this is it. This is the year. They got to figure it out or else you're SOL. I think it's more that they're like, okay, let's play into the fifth-year option. Let's maybe give a year on the franchise tag if we need more time. Because they're not afraid of that, because the thing with the Browns that Sashi Brown did and John Dorsey, built upon was when they ripped this down to the studs. And frankly, they took the studs out, and I think they actually lit the whole thing on fire and then proceeded to start building after the Browns, where they are now to where they were, always reminds me of Monty Python and the Holy Grail and the Swamp Castle, where we built the castle and then it sunk into the swamp, and then we built another castle. Well, then that one sunk into the swamp, and then we built a third castle and stood for a while, caught fire, then sunk into the swamp. Like that's kind of how I always remembered it. And at the end, the guy goes, and the fifth one stood, and that's where the Browns are right now. And so they have come this far. If they're like, we need another year to figure out what to do with Baker, if he is our franchise quarterback, if he's someone that we can build around for the future, then they're going to do it. Because if there is one thing that Carson Wentz and Jared Goff have taught all of us, it's time. Mm-hmm. It's that time is the essence, and that you actually have more time than you think. And so that's what they're going to do. They're going to use all their time, and they're going to make an honest decision. And if this isn't the guy, then I can tell you with Andrew Berry, and I don't have the source and anything like that. This is just me reading the tea leaves and understanding how this guy works. If Baker's not the guy, they'll sniff around Russell Wilson. They'll call for Aaron Rodgers. They'll pick up the phone and see what it'll cost for Derek Carr. They've got their chips in the middle of the table. And if it means they have to put a few more chips in the middle of the table, they'll keep doing it because they think everything else around the quarterback position is figured out.
My thing too, and this is me personally looking at Baker Mayfield throughout his career in Cleveland. 2018, he comes in as a rookie. Obviously, it's Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley. That became a whole debacle in itself. Hugh Jackson finally gets fired after 3-36-1. After that second game in Pittsburgh, after the first game was a tie.
Can I just stop you right there and ask a question? When you talk to people from Pittsburgh and you say 337-1?
3-36-1.
3-36-1. Does everybody just start laughing?
I think people still laugh at Cleveland now.
Like you hear that out loud, and life is so good now that you look back at that and you can't help but just go, what the hell was going on around here? Like,
yeah, it's.
Sorry, continue.
No, you're good. But me looking at Baker Mayfield's career, like I said, Hugh Jackson, Todd Haley both get fired about halfway through the season, and then it was Greg Williams was the interim head coach. Baker starts to look good. 2019, it becomes a huge disaster. Now, one thing that I feel like not a lot of people discuss, and it could be because I'm completely wrong on this, but just me looking at Baker Mayfield, I feel like Baker fit the system that Todd Monken and Freddie Kitchens were trying to put together. I feel like that would be the perfect system for him, but it was the pieces around him that did not fit that system. Odell and Jarvis, I feel like they fit more of a system that they're in now. It doesn't help that you had a terrible offensive line, and then I believe your left tackle at some point got arrested for having about 150 pounds worth of weed.
That is correct. That
happened. So
just get to the border in time.
Right? Yeah, I don't get what you're thinking in that situation, but I guess I'm also not.
You're a professional athlete. Get someone else to do it. Sorry.
No, you're right. I sometimes don't understand the thought process of the athletes at times.
Here's a couple now. Haul it for me.
Yeah, and then obviously continue with Baker, and then 2020 then you get that half and half. The first half of the season, not so well. And then, ironically, Odell goes down, then the flip switches, and then this, that, and then the offense starts to take off even more. Even though that's completely unfair, I think that was legitimately coincidental based on the circumstances that you guys had to go through in 2020. New head coach, new offense, not being able to meet up at all. This is what we're doing right now as we speak, is how they were having to do the complete offseason. I understand other teams are doing the same thing too. But looking into this, and like I said, I could be completely wrong about 2019 and looking at what happened with Baker Mayfield. I'm trying to figure out how exactly I want to go with this, because
I think I know where you're going. So, the one thing to always remember with Baker is that his favorite quarterback is Favre. He wants to be Favre. Of every quarterback he has seen and every quarterback he's grown up with, it's Favre. It's why
the picture
of him on draft night was Favre's picture, and he replaced the sign with Oklahoma. And he wore the same jean shorts, and he wore the shirt. He wants to be Favre. And the offense that he came into allowed him to be Favre. It allowed him to drop back and whip the ball all over the place. When Monken came in and Freddie Kitchens came in, they tried to build upon that by running a lot of that air raid system stuff, where it was very simple routes, and it was a lot of improvisation, and it was a lot of just go out there and draw it up in the dirt and let's go. It flopped. Mm-hmm. It flopped because there was no direction. It flopped because guys couldn't get on the same page. It flopped because there was no discipline. Kevin Stefanski came in, and he basically put him in the Shanahan offense, and he attached the training wheels to him, and basically gave him, and this is going to sound bad, but it gave him some simple reads, gave him some deep shots. Like, by the way, like, every quarterback that has been put in the Shanahan, McVay, zone read, play action, heavy, zone run offense. Mm-hmm. Okay? All of those guys have some fun, unless you're Rodgers, which they took some weird version of it with LaFleur, and then what he was running and what he liked, smashed it together, and wah. But all of those guys who are in that system have those shackles on them that don't make them a gunslinger. And so what we saw was Baker the Gunslinger. Baker the Gunslinger has been taken away. Mm-hmm. Now told, okay, these are your shots, these are your reads, this is what you're going for. And by the way, those shots are wide open. And those guys are open. And all of those things. And it's the biggest thing. I've had this theory for a while, and I probably need to sit down and grind tape to really get through to it. But I've had this theory that Odell Beckham came from the West Coast offense, which is a lot of slant and go, improvisation, get open, do what you got to do to get there.
Get out in space.
The ball in space. Exactly. This offense is not improvisation.
No.
Sean McVay does not improvise. Kevin Stefanski does not improvise. Gary Kubiak does not improvise. Kyle Shanahan, down the line from there. There's not a lot of improvisation that comes out of that. It's you run what's on the page, and I swear the scheme that is there will get you open. And from what we've seen out of Stefanski, the scheme gets them open. Like, guys are really open. Mm-hmm. And I think there are sometimes where that guy draws up stuff that I think he's just having fun. I mean, second play of the game, he ran a tight end screen. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't think a tight end screen has been run from somebody who is not either Travis Kelce or George Kittle, maybe Tony Gonzalez, but I don't even think they were playing around with that stuff back then. Like, those are the guys you would run it for. Here's Stefanski running it for, I think it was Austin Hooper. And, like, another one for Harrison Bryant or David Njoku. Like, that's how this offense works. There are clearly training wheels on Baker Mayfield. There are clearly ways that are taking the gunslinger out of him. And there are a lot of people, and I'll put myself in this same category, who would love to see the training wheels taken off and see the gunslinger with wide open throws. And see if maybe that's the solution to the Odell Beckham conundrum. And I hate to continue to come back to this, but look at Green Bay. Take some of those elements and put those in. Look at the Rams. Because McVay's offense, you saw what it could do with Goff. Clearly had the training wheels on. Now you're seeing it with Stafford. And you're seeing it with a quarterback that can read the field. And you're seeing it with a quarterback who's been in the league for 10 years and knows what he likes to run. And I will guarantee you that McVay sat down with Stafford and went, okay, give me what you like and let's implement it. And Stafford went, okay, I want some of this West Coast stuff that I ran over here. I want some of the stuff I ran with Pep Hamilton. I want some of the stuff that Jim Bob Cooter and I were doing with the West Coast offense when this thing started to click. And all of those were coming in there. And I think McVay, at least from what I've seen of Rams games and all that kind of stuff, has kind of, folded that stuff in and added his twist to it. And you're seeing what that offense can do. And I wonder if that happened to Baker, what it would look like. And again, this is just one man spitballing to try to figure out why one of the better wide receivers in football can't get on the same page with one of the most accurate quarterbacks that has ever walked out of college.
Yeah, that was one thing, too, with Baker Mayfield is, and I think one thing that I've learned, too, obviously being in the Cleveland area and living here, is you have two sides of the spectrum. You either love Baker Mayfield and you are basically at the foundation of building every house on Baker Island, or you are completely trying to run him out of town. And I think part of that is because he's a polarizing guy.
Absolutely.
And I think part of it, especially, was that Kansas game that he had, his Heisman Trophy year, and the whole not being able to shake hand, or not shaking hit, or you know what I mean, the coin toss, and then obviously the what grab, and just and then
planting the flag in the middle of
that's where I was getting to next.
Ohio Stadium, and I believe we live in a world where people have forgotten those things. I feel the same way because Braylon Edwards used to complain all the time, oh yeah, nobody liked me here because I was a Michigan man, and everybody looked at him and said BS.
Even a guy like Jabril Peppers who came from Michigan.
No, nobody cares. If you play well here, we don't care where you went to college.
Yeah, exactly.
Trust me. If Tom Brady got traded here, I don't think Michigan would come up.
Absolutely not. Now for me, it sucks because obviously I'm an Ohio State fan, but I'm also a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, of course, and it sucks seeing a guy like Denzel Ward get drafted, which we are going to get into here shortly because there's a whole different ball game with him.
That's second breaks my heart.
And there's another conversation we got to have about another player who's coming up on a contract here soon.
Okay. Oh boy.
And I think you know where I'm going with that. And I think there's something that no one has really talked about when it comes to Wyatt Teller. But I have one last question for you about Baker Mayfield.
Okay.
So ESPN's Dan Graziano, I can't pronounce his name. I apologize. Graziano, that's how it is. Said that the Browns are willing to pay him mid to high $30 million per year. This is the first time that we've actually heard a number from a quality source, from a reliable source that we could ballpark on. How do you think that's going to affect the roster moving forward? And then that gets it leads right into the Denzel Ward, Wyatt Teller contract that's going to be coming up.
So this is the part that's going to be fascinating. I remember we had Mike Florio on the show a while ago. Florio's an awesome dude, and he's as plugged in as they come. And he said to us, he goes, I believe what's going to happen is that Baker Mayfield is going to lay the foundation for the second tier of quarterbacks that are going to get paid. Mm-hmm. Because right now we were in this position, at least this year, and I think going forward as well with Lamar Jackson and everything else, where every quarterback was stepping in and becoming the next highest paid quarterback. Mm-hmm. It was Mahomes, and then now Josh Allen has to be paid, and we were just basically topping all these quarterback contracts over and over and over and over and over. And there were no tiers and there were no structures. It was either, here's $40 million or here's 15. You're either Ryan Fitzpatrick or you're one of the best quarterbacks in football.
Right.
And I think what's going to happen with Baker, and what should happen with Baker, is that he becomes that quarterback that leads off the second tier of quarterbacks. And you could put Tannehill right in that second tier of quarterbacks, who I think is a somebody who is a little bit more comfortable in a system, but I always compare Baker to.
Right.
Because in this offense, the way it runs, he should be Ryan Tannehill. It should fit just like that. And Tannehill's a damn good quarterback, and a lot of people would take Tannehill in a heartbeat.
Right.
So I think that's where we are, and that's what Dan Graziano is tapping into, is that Baker Mayfield will set the high end of the tier 2 quarterback.
Right.
according to what he said and according to what Florio told us. And if that's the case, okay, that's right where he should be because that's what he's proved. You can win football games with Baker Mayfield.
As
you
we've
can.
seen.
We've seen. You can win football games with Baker Mayfield. Now, the question you ask yourself, do you lose games because of Baker Mayfield? And that's where the argument comes in. And I'm someone who says, no, I can't get mad at a guy who lost a shootout. Yes, was the last play calling in the drive puzzling in the Charger game? Yes. I don't know why they ran a draw. Did he miss some guys? Yes. But I can't get mad at a guy who put up over 40 points in a shootout.
And a messed up shoulder.
Right, with a messed up shoulder on top of that. I can't get mad at a guy for all of the different things that have happened. I just, maybe I'm alone on that. He looked like absolute dog mess in the Viking game.
Yes, that was, I think, in my opinion, the worst game of his career.
Flat out dog mess.
One thing, I want to interrupt you on something, because this is something that you're getting into that I feel like not a lot of people understand when it comes to quarterbacks. You are either Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, or you are, I guess what term kids use today, dog water. You're terrible. You're not good. And there's two issues that I have. One is no one gives respect to that, quote, tier 2 quarterback. And the other thing that I do not like that people do is put a negative connotation on a quarterback being a game manager. I've never liked that at all. Because, A, do most people not realize that Tom Brady was a game manager for most of his career? Troy Aikman, who is a Hall of Fame quarterback, was a game manager. It's not a bad thing. And I think the reason being is because the era that we are in today, you look at let's look at the top quarterbacks in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, let's say Justin Herbert. We'll put him in there for this case. He's a rising guy. Joe Burrow, he's a guy, he's starting to rise as well. Lamar Jackson, he's a different story. Russell Wilson, although you can say he's a game manager as well.
He has his moments where he'd be,
he has his moments.
Game manager. But the thing with all those guys that you handed off, and it's the big
Aaron
question,
Rodgers as well,
and it's the big question that will always follow Baker Mayfield around, which is, I got 2 minutes left on the clock. You got 2 timeouts. I'm down by 5. Here's the ball. Go win. We don't have that.
We've seen that technically twice. If you're Cleveland, 2019 against Buffalo, and 2020 against Cincinnati.
And that's what all of them will come back to say. Is everybody who likes Baker Mayfield goes, we've seen it twice. We've seen him do it. He can do it well. Has it happened in a playoff game? No. Has it happened this year? No. Haven't been. But it has happened in the past where it's 2 minutes left. You got a timeout. Here's the ball. You're down by 5. Go win. And it was so great because Mike Sandow, because that's what everybody was screaming at Baker about after the Chiefs game, was how come you couldn't do that? How come you threw the pick? And he was trying to throw the ball out of bounds.
Right. I agree with that 100%.
And Mike Sandow wrote this awesome piece, basically going like, in that situation, and I wish I had it in front of me so I had the number, but in that situation the Browns were in, you lose that game, I think something like 78 or 80% of the time. And that number may even be higher in the situation the Browns were in. The amount of those drives that everybody loves to point to and says that's the guy who's the franchise quarterback don't exist at the level you think. They're drives that ended field goals. And they didn't need a field goal. I think they were down by 5.
Yeah.
And it just, they don't exist at the level that you think they do and that your brain tells you they do. They just don't. So I am a Baker supporter. I have not left yet. I'll say this. I'm a Baker supporter, but if Aaron Rodgers becomes available in the offseason, I think you'd be absolutely nuts if you didn't pick up the phone.
Yeah, I think if you're Andrew Berry and you're not at least doing your due diligence, and I remember, again, going back to Carmen and Lyman, they had this huge debate, I believe in February or March, right before, this was right after he requested, or he demanded the trade, but right before the allegations. I remember those two going nuts. Cleveland Browns fans going nuts, saying about Deshaun Watson and saying, if you're Andrew Berry, or in our case too with not Keith Butler, with Kevin Colbert.
Yeah.
If you're not calling, if you're not making your due diligence, you're not doing your job.
I'd do the same thing if I were you in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's how this works. When you are building the list of quarterbacks, and one of the 5 to 10 best quarterbacks in the league become available, and you don't own one of those 5 to 10, you pick up the phone and you've tried to solve that problem.
Yes.
Because this game is won by quarterback play, whether we want to admit it or not. And yes, we can point to the Niners and say they made the Super Bowl on a phenomenal defense and Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. And we can point to the Rams, who made it on a above average defense and Sean McVay's brain. Well, it didn't get over the hump.
No.
You need a quarterback to do that. And even if it is a game manager that you can point to, like I'll take to my grave, like that last Super Bowl that Peyton Manning won, he won because the defense was sensational.
Right.
Peyton Manning didn't turn the ball over. Peyton Manning kept the train on the tracks. And there's something to always be said for guys like that. And I think Baker is one of those guys. I think Baker is one of those guys who will keep the train on the tracks for you. And I'm not saying he's Teddy Bridgewater. I think he's 2 steps above that. I think he's Ryan Tannehill. The Tennessee Titans are not looking to upgrade the quarterback position unless one of those top 5 to 10 guys, we'll say 10 because I think Tannehill is one of the 10, are available. And then they will pick up the phone and call. In the same way that if Russell Wilson becomes available, Andrew Berry will pick up the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Will. And he has to. Because that's one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the league that can win you a Super Bowl. Here's the ball. Go win. In the same way that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers looked at Jameis Winston and went, I mean, we could re-sign him, or that Tom Brady guy's available.
Yeah.
You could be firmly on Baker Island and still look at this and go, oh, crap, Deshaun Watson's really good. Might be a dirtbag. Allegedly. We're not sure. A lot of civil suits. But he's really good.
Yeah, he is. And obviously that last year that we saw in 2020, he was a top passer in the NFL in terms of passing yards.
He's one of the 5 best quarterbacks in football.
Yes.
If you're making the top 5 list, Deshaun Watson's 5.
Yes.
And again, we'll see what the legal system does with all of this and the civil suits and all that stuff, because it's not a pretty sight. And it's not a pretty thing. If the guy's on the field, you can't deny the talent.
Right. Let's switch gears over. Let's get into a little bit of the offensive line, in particular with Wyatt Teller. Now, you mentioned earlier about Baker Mayfield and with the contract situation, because Baker Mayfield is in a situation of there were 2 other quarterbacks in that same class that are going to be paid, in Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, and you wanted to see what was going to go on with that. I think if you're Wyatt Teller, I think because he's a free agent that's coming up off season, there's another guy who has his 5th-year option in 2022, and I believe will get paid, and he should get paid, is Quentin Nelson. Yeah. I think, and Brandon Sheriff from Washington, he was on the franchise tag. So I think, I'm surprised no one has ever mentioned the fact that Wyatt Teller's in the exact same situation, it feels like, that what Baker Mayfield is in with the quarterback, with the contract. Because if you're Wyatt Teller, and he even said it yesterday, I believe it was on, what show was he? Was it you guys, or was it Bull and Fox?
Bull and Fox.
Okay.
Yeah,
where he basically said he would love to stay in Cleveland, but the money's, it's a business. And obviously we know the agent's going to be whispering in his ear to take the most money.
Of course. As he should. Your earning time is 10 years in this league if you're lucky.
I look at this as, if you're Wyatt Teller, who is starting to look good, he's starting to look back to that trend that he was on in 2020, where he was one of the best guards, if not maybe the best guard in football. How does that necessarily affect Cleveland? But then also, how does that possibly affect Denzel and the money you're going to have to give, or what you could give Denzel?
So there's a lot of elements that fall into this. One of them is when you have Bill Callahan,
one of the best offensive line coaches in...
Exactly. And there's a reason why when Kevin Stefanski was hired, I think it was the first hire that he made was Bill Callahan. And it's because when you have an unbelievable defensive or offensive line coach, it can do so much for your team.
Mm-hmm.
It is, Dante Scarnecchia. Sorry about that.
This is
Dante
definitely
Scarnecchia.
live. Hey, it's all good. I'm very easy to work with that.
I feel bad about that.
No, you're good.
As I was saying, Dante Scarnecchia for the New England Patriots for years and years, has been that dude that has solved so many issues that the line has, and has solved it for Tom Brady and has kept him upright and has done such a good job at taking chicken blank and turning it into chicken salad. And you are watching the same thing around his career with Bill Callahan. Bill Callahan is so good at taking these guys and elevating them to a level. He did it with Dallas when that line was built up. And I think it was Teron Smith that moved him from guard to tackle, and there was no issue that came into play, and he became one of the better left tackles in all of football.
Well, I think if I'm not mistaken, when it came to Tyron Smith, wasn't it supposed to be he was originally a right tackle, and then they were thinking about. Cause I was gonna say, because I remember rewatching that. Because I'm one of those nerds. When it comes to the NFL draft, I rewatch every NFL draft that's on YouTube a billion times, and I remember them saying, maybe kick him to right tackle for a year, and then in 2012 kick him over to the left tackle, and then obviously we've seen what he is now. He was one of the best left tackles in football, and he's been an absolute monster. Yeah,
he has, and that's one of those where, again, the guy put in all the work, and he's put in the right position, and he's doing all the pushing, and he's keeping those guys upright. But Bill Callahan has this track record. And so I wonder how they look at Wyatt Teller, and I wonder what they think. If they go, okay, this guy, PFF is telling us this is one of the best guards in all of football for the last 2 years. Can Callahan build another one? Or did John Dorsey find a diamond in the rough at the trade deadline in 2019?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the question they're kicking around, because I can tell you. So when Paul DePodesta was hired and Sashi Brown was brought in, I think that was like 5 years ago or so.
Was it like 2014, 2015, somewhere in that range?
Might have even been longer.
There
was this PowerPoint slide that was leaked. And it had this thing, and you can find it on the web all over the place if you're a Browns fan and you haven't seen this. It's called Browns Guardrails. And on that list was everything, their draft philosophy, their places that they look to draft, how they look to build, the key parts of the franchise, all of that stuff were in those guardrails. And if you look at those guardrails in that PowerPoint slide that leaked, it's everything that they've done since then. One of the main things that they have on there is key positions, OL. And so I continue to think that some of it is, okay, can Bill Callahan find another one of these guys? Can we go get another guard in the draft to be a road masher and all that stuff? And the other parts of me continues to kick in and go, well, wait, you've got your left tackle on a rookie contract
Yep.
for the next 3 years.
3 to 4 years, possibly.
Right. You think you may have found something in Blake Hance, who's become a really nice tackle for this team.
Yes.
AKA some guy named Blake, if you remember that press conference at the tail end of the year. And you see how this line is built with J.C. Treader as well in the middle of it. Now he's getting a little bit older, and Joe Petonio a little bit older, but he's a stalwart. And Jack Conklin has a few more years on that contract.
Right.
They're the highest spending team on offense in the league, yet it's not even close. If you looked at offensive spending, they are one. And that's Andrew Berry's philosophy. That's Kevin Stefanski's philosophy. That's how they want to work. So do they want to pay Wyatt Teller? Yeah, I think they do. But I think there's another part in their brain who is sitting back and watching tape of all the guys in college and turning it to Bill Callahan and going, here's 5 guys we might be able to take in rounds 2 to 5. Can you make this? Can you build this guy back? And if Bill Callahan comes back and goes, I mean, it might take some time, I don't know, then they'll go, fine. Wyatt Teller, 4-year deal. Thank you. 3-year deal. Here we go. And that takes you to Jedrick Wills until he has to get paid. And you can figure out what to do from there. So, yeah, the way they are spending on this team is their philosophy and their idea. Invest in offense. Build around the quarterback. Put him in the best position to succeed. We'll figure out the defense. it's almost the way that they think, and I'm going to cross sports on you. The way that they think is like the 6 seconds or less Phoenix Suns. If we are league average on defense, we're over the moon because we think we're that much better on offense than everybody else. And I think that's exactly how this team thinks.
Right. Because, so one thing for me is I've always had the philosophy of when I would get asked by, because pretty much all of my friends, that I know in real life are also Browns fans, so I get stuck talking Browns all damn day. Which...
Poor man. How much therapy did you end up doing until 2 years ago?
I remember all of my friends, they would ask me, they said, what is winning like? And I'm just like, it feels great. It feels like when you see a girl at the mall and you finally and you actually go and get her number and you guys end up actually going on a date. That's what it feels like.
That's a great way to put it.
And now that's regular season success. Obviously, in terms of the playoffs, that's a whole different ballgame because we haven't won a playoff game in 5 years. But that's a different story for a different day. I've looked at this when I get asked about Denzel Ward or Wyatt Teller. The sexier pick is easily Denzel Ward.
Mm-hmm.
But exactly what you said. And this is something I've been preaching, and I sometimes get called stupid for this when I say you need to protect the franchise at all costs. Granted, one of the main reasons why I felt like the Cincinnati Bengals should have drafted Penei Sewell, because I felt like they needed to protect the franchise. Now, obviously, that right now that's looking like they did just fine with Jamar Chase.
Yeah, we didn't think Jamar Chase would look like this.
But and like you said, you have Jedrick Wills under contract for 3 to 4 more years. Joel Bitonio, he's now the longest tenured Cleveland Brown, or he is the longest tenured Cleveland Brown. He's been there for a long time, 2014, I think. You get J.C. Treader. He came in 2017 or 2018?
Dorsey picked him up.
Okay, so that would have been 2018.
Yeah, and it was James Campo at that point too, because it was the former Packers coach. Which is why.
And then obviously now you get Whiteside, and then you get Jack Conklin under contract. He's under contract for the next 2, 3, 4 years, 2 or 3 years, somewhere in that range. I truly believe that you need to protect the franchise at all costs, because look at some of the better offenses that we've seen in the past however long. Let's talk about the 2016 Dallas Cowboys. One of the best that was probably the best offense in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And I know, and I hate for, I'll say Pittsburgh for 14 till probably last year, one of the better offensive lines in football.
Absolutely. Those 5 big ones up front did wonders for Big Ben.
Tampa Bay last year and this year. 2020, they went and got Tristan Wirfs, who was my favorite tackle in all of the. I thought my personal philosophy is he's going to be a good tackle. I personally thought he was going to be an all-pro guard. But at the end of the day, right now, he's looking phenomenal for Tampa Bay, who, out of that bunch, was the last tackle taken, out of the core 5.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew Thomas has been fine for the Giants. Mekhi Becton has had moments where he looked good. I think he's hurt.
He's hurt.
Now. Yeah, he was off on the cart, but he's had moments where he looked really good. A lot of people said he had the highest ceiling but the lowest floor. He had the highest variance. And
because of the weight, too, I think.
Right, and Jedrick Wills has been good for this team.
Compared to what he's had to go, transitioning from right tackle to left tackle, he's always been the quote-unquote blindside tackle, but it's a whole different ballgame with transitioning over to the left tackle in the NFL. Now, one thing that is nice is the fact that you have one of the best left tackles of all time, and Joe Thomas, training you and helping you out and guide you. I think that's really that's definitely a plus. But when you look at Denzel, he's a sexy pick. He's a guy. He's from Northeast Ohio. He went to Ohio State. But at the end of the day, you can write him down to miss 3 to 4 games a year. And can you necessarily trust that with the way his injury history is? And you look at the history of the last couple drafts. 2019, you get Greedy Williams in the second round. 2021, this year, you get Greg Newsome. So, and obviously most people are saying you drafted Greedy Williams replacement. But at the end of the day, we don't know what's going to happen with Denzel. Most of us assume he's going to get paid. We think. Maybe not top-tier cornerback money. But it's interesting on how that's going to work, and especially with what happens with Wyatt Teller or vice versa.
And he's also been brutal this year.
Yes.
I mean, he's been pretty bad. And I'm a Denzel Ward supporter because I think it is harder in this league to find a top 10 corner than it is to find a guard.
And he did not practice today. He's still dealing with that hamstring injury.
And he's up once again, and he's been bad. I mean, frankly, and if we're being honest, the whole secondary has been bad. It's been the Achilles heel of this team the entire year. And it's amazing because everybody around here wants to blame Joe Woods. And everybody wants that dude. Like, it is torches and pitchforks for the defensive coordinator right now.
Oh, everyone will buy him a first-class ticket straight out of Cleveland.
And I hear this, and I'm going, okay, they're fourth in pressure rate. They might not be getting home as much as they should for sacks and all that stuff, but they're making quarterbacks uncomfortable. They're throwing off balance. The thing that is killing them is the high-priced secondary. And I'm going, folks, that's not the coach. If your secondary is bad, that's not the defensive coordinator's fault.
It's not.
Especially when you're playing too high. Too high is not hard. You know what it is? It's communication, baby. Yeah. That's simple.
It's not Joe Woods' fault that John Johnson and Ronnie Harrison are leaving guys like Mike Williams 35 yards open, where it looks like Justin Herbert was throwing a golf ball into Lake Erie.
It is because those guys are not talking, and they're not passing those guys off, and they're not understanding their zones. And as a former safety put to me, they're trying to get their interceptions, and they're trying to get their stats packed, and they're not trying to play together. And that's what he sees, and it's the same exact thing. He's like, this ain't the DC's fault. This is them.
Yeah.
This is guys.
When it comes to Pittsburgh, one thing that we're dealing with is the fact that we have Minka Fitzpatrick and Terrell Edmonds, who we did not pick up Terrell Edmonds in our fifth-year option, but they've been talking a lot this year about their communication and how they can look at each other, know exactly what they're thinking, and knowing exactly what they're going to do without having to say a word. And right now, I think you're in a situation that those guys are learning. You brought in this defense as a whole. We can name off all the guys that you guys brought in that were not here last year. Malik Jackson, Tack McKinley, Anthony Walker. Obviously, you drafted Greg Newsome, John Johnson, Troy Hill. I mean, the list goes on. JOK, who is on
JOK. Yep, you can. It's easier to name the guys that are still here than it is to name the new guys, because the guys who are here from the defense of the previous year are basically Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward. And you could toss in Malcolm Smith and say, hey,
or Mac Wilson and
Mac Wilson. Okay, fine, he's kind of a starter. And Greedy Williams, I guess he technically was here, but he didn't play. And Grant Delpit was technically here, but
he was injured.
Was here for part of the year. You have all these technicalities in between, but if you were building a starting 11, you'd go, here's the guys: Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, and you're building the rest of it in between there. And Troy Hill and John Johnson know each other because they know the Rams system and they understand from playing with each other there. So there's some familiarity that's there with those guys. But the rest of it is still working out and still figuring out. And the other part, too, and okay, maybe you can say this part is coaching, but these guys got to figure out how to play together. Because if you're going to be constantly fishing for interceptions, this is going to keep happening. Because those are those plays where you look brilliant when you catch it and you're running down the field. But you look like a real moron when that guy blitzes by you when you try to go for the ball. You look really stupid. So that's the part of this that I want to see against Pittsburgh if they got figured out, because between Deontay Johnson, Claypool, and all of those different guys.
Pat Freiermuth. I think he's a guy that needs to have more involvement, especially with I don't necessarily think that you guys handled tight ends the greatest. And one thing too with Pittsburgh is the fact that we've been we've been preaching, get Pat Freiermuth the ball more. Get Eric or get him more involved, because obviously a lot of fans here do not like Eric Ebron. And
Eric has that with every fan base he goes to.
Yeah, pretty much. And obviously, Juju is gone for the year with the shoulder injury, which I think people are not going to realize how much of it. He may not be the stat guy. He might not get you the stats, but how important he is. The leader of that locker room, or the leader of that wide receiver room. In the fact that he was our generation's Hines Ward in terms of doing the dirty work, in terms of blocking, in terms of...
He's a blocker, you're right.
Yeah.
He's a blocker.
He wasn't the fastest guy, but he's a guy that Ben Roethlisberger could trust. He's a guy that he's going to get to his spots. And I think part of it, too, is just the fact that everyone hates him because of his TikToks.
Yep. Yeah. The TikTok stuff, I mean, look, it's... The fact that he was recording the locker room, what was his rookie year, he was doing that too. Like, that's one of those where it's like, okay, you're 21 and stupid. Like, let's set the 21 and stupid straight. Okay,
yeah.
Let's not do that anymore. We'll figure it out from there. And the other, that's the thing with those kind of guys, is you start getting that reputation that you become me first, and it's really hard to get past that reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me, we have Odell Beckham Jr.
Oh yeah.
I hear it every day. Oh, that guy's here for himself, and he does things that will drive you up the wall. Like, I will never get out of my head, and I forget what game it was, of him with the shoes off, standing there yelling in the air like a toddler. Like, and then the visor thing.
The watch.
All nonsense that follows him all over the place. And, like, former Browns offensive guard, I've gotten to know John Greco, who played guard for the Browns for a long time. He also was with Eli Manning and the Giants there. And Greco, on numerous occasions, has told me, that dude is one of the best teammates on the planet, and there are few guys on this earth who want to win more than Odell. Like, he's like, I love him. I love that dude. I would play with that guy any day of the week. And that's exactly where it probably is with you guys and Juju. Is I bet you everybody in that locker room is like, yeah, he did something stupid, and that's going to happen. But that dude makes you better. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm fascinated to see what comes out of this weekend, because you're right. I could see the tight end part of it biting. Trying to Browns against tight ends. I mean, yeah, Travis Kelce ate you for lunch, but Travis Kelce eats everybody for lunch. And it's kind of tough to point to that one and be like, ooh, can't stop that guy.
Yeah, I think if you stop Travis Kelce, you're doing something. Or if you're a guy like Todd Bowles in the Super Bowl for Tampa Bay, you're doing something.
Yeah, you're doing something right when you're hushing those tight ends down the way that you are. Because and that's the Browns offense, by the way. I was listening to, it was the Athletic Football Show with Robert Mays. It was his latest one. He had Seth Galina, and he had Deontay Lee on it from PFF. And they do their Too High podcast as well. And they were just talking about trends in the league. And they go, the thing that is nuts in this league now is the amount of tight ends that everybody is now using. And I know we are in football nerd area.
So you guys have like a plethora.
But like the way and the reason that they're using all these tight ends is because they can block, they can catch, they can do all of these different things, and they can take your defensive game plan and make you just cry right into it and have to adjust off the bat. And the tight end has become so valuable and so important in this league. And so if you can't stop it, I could see Pittsburgh going that route. Because Ben going quick game with tight ends makes sense to me. Makes 100% sense to me.
Let's go ahead, and I know you like this reference a lot. Let's go to the doctor from Family Guy, because I know in the jump start you guys talk about
Dr. Fine, Dr. Howard.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and play doctor for 1 second. Who's playing on Sunday as the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns? It's going to be Case Keenum, or is it going to be Baker Mayfield? And I'm sorry for making your head spin a million times more.
No, you're fine. So usually, no, I dude, anybody who makes me think, I'm thrilled. I love having to think. I'm going to say Baker, because the Browns have been really good about, if you speak, you're going to play. And Baker addressed the media on Wednesday. Mm-hmm. So the only time that wasn't the case, where someone spoke and then turned around and didn't play, was last Wednesday with Baker Mayfield addressing the media for the Thursday night game. And we kept hearing that if that game was Sunday, he would have played. I think Baker plays. I think it is Baker and not Case Keenum. And the part that I will continue to look at, and it's the most telling thing that they have got to figure out, is what Mike Tomlin said in his press conference when he goes, we don't care who they're playing. We know how their quarterbacks operate in this system. And that was the part where if I'm Kevin Stefanski and I've heard that, I'm like, is he daring? I think I'm hearing a dare. Is that a dare? All right, let's open it up. Let's make him regret that statement, because Case Keenum, again, backup quarterback, will keep the train on the tracks. He will not lose you a game. He sure as hell ain't going to win you the game. So, at that point, open it up. Let's see if they can throw it. And like, the shoulder scares the hell out of me, and I don't want the thing to keep popping out and be put back in. But until he gets surgery, man, we're up this creek every single week. Mm-hmm. Every single week we are going to be having this conversation, because every time he gets tackled, we're all going to be going, oh, God, did the shoulder pop out? Oh, crap, the shoulder popped out. Yeah. Oh, no, get him in the tent. Like,
it doesn't help the fact that you're going up against T.J. Watt.
Right.
And Cam Hayward, who is graded I believe the highest defensive player on Pro Football Focus this season.
As he should be, by the way. And that dude doesn't get talked about enough. I know interior defensive linemen put people to sleep as much as interior offensive linemen. That dude doesn't get talked about enough. I mean, he's probably second to Aaron Donald. Like, he is so damn good.
Who's winning on Sunday? We had to play this game. We had to do it.
I will say...
And you're not going to hurt my personal feelings if you say Cleveland.
No, because I got to pick your brain on the Steelers, too. I will say Cleveland 19, Pittsburgh 17. I think it is going to be low scoring. I think it's going to be ugly. It's going to be one of those games where you're going to hear all of the guys who are like 55 and older going, now this is AFC North football the way that we remembered it. Like, it's going to be one of those games.
Yeah.
You pansies whipping the ball over the place. That's not football. This is football. Like,
back in the John Madden era.
Exactly. This is good AFC North football. Like, I got a feeling it's going to be one of those. Yeah, I think it's going to be low scoring. I think we're going to see the defenses do a lot of the talking, and we'll see where it goes from there. All right. I got a couple Pittsburgh questions I got to throw at you.
Okay.
Because Pittsburgh pod. So I feel like we got to hit them a touch. Okay. The real Big Ben. Is it the guy we saw for the first 3 weeks who looked like he couldn't get the ball out of his hands fast enough because he was going to get sacked? Or the guy that we've seen the last 2 weeks who seems to be wanting to push the ball down the field a little bit more?
Ooh.
Big Ben.
I think it's not necessarily Big Ben. I think it was the offensive line. And where I get to that is because this was a group that you have a rookie left tackle, a second year guard, a rookie center. You have a guy in Trey Turner who's been in the league for a while. He's went to a Super Bowl. But he's not who he once was. And then our second or third year right tackle. And on top of that, we're forgetting about the fact that we haven't had Zach Banner all year, which is going to be interesting because he's the most physical guy on that offensive line for Pittsburgh. And I think it's the fact that they needed to gel. They needed to gain chemistry. And I think not a lot of people – I think they understood it in Pittsburgh, but they didn't want to put that into realization because this is going to be Big Ben's final year, and we want things to be perfect, roses, and vanilla. We want it to be everything. The defense is good enough, but it was just a situation of you let Alejandro Villanueva, he's gone. Although he did not play well at all in 2020, so you let him go. He goes to Baltimore, who's doing a fine job there. He's played right tackle and left tackle there. He's done a fine job. And then left guard, you had Kevin Dotson. He was a rookie. And then obviously you lose Marquise Pouncey, Hall of Fame center, to retirement. You let go of David DeCastro in training camp because he was dealing with injury and also a contract, And then you're dealing with Zach Banner, who did not play most of last year with the ACL tear, and Chuks Okorafor, who's a guy who's had flashes, but not that he's not a Jack Conklin. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So you're having the situation of these guys are seeing NFL football for the first time, most of them, and they're trying to learn, which is something that's going to take a little bit of time. Let's look at, again, I go back to the Dallas Cowboys offensive line, where they drafted Tyron Smith in 2011. They drafted Zach Martin in 2014. They spent years of time drafting offensive line and making that a core part. I'm interested to see how this team's going to continue in 2022 to 2023. Also, we don't know what the hell that we're going to do at quarterback. We don't know if it's going to be a rookie quarterback or if Aaron Rodgers is actually coming to Pittsburgh. We don't know that just yet.
I don't put anything past Kevin Colbert. I don't put anything past the Rooney family. I mean, you've done nothing but prove you know what the hell you're doing and the best way to execute it. The only question that I have had with the Pittsburgh Steelers in a very long time is why the hell you took Najee Harris that early when you knew the line was going to be as banged up as it was.
Thank you. I love the fact that you just said that. And I get ridiculed. I get criticized all the time for this. I was a guy that said, and I remember Aditi Kinkabwala from the NFL Network. Everyone seems to hate her. I love her. I know she goes on all the time with Ken Alignment. That's where I got hip to her, and I love her to death.
Yeah, Aditi's excellent. And by the way, as plugged in as they come when it comes to all of the AFC North.
Yes.
Especially Pittsburgh, and she's real plugged in Cleveland too.
Yes, because she has ties to both.
Yep.
And I remember her going on. It was on something with the NFL Network. They did a mock draft where they had different reporters doing mock drafts and she took Jalen Mayfield. I believe that's who it was. And I said, "Thank you." I personally felt like if you really, I think it's the old thought process of you want to fix the run game. You draft a running back. In my personal opinion, I looked at it as I think you need a guy that's going to protect your quarterback now. I understand he's a rookie, but he's a guy that has that talent in a deep draft class of offensive line. But also, you're protecting the future of whoever it's going to be. We all have heard it a billion times, and we'll say it again. The games are won and lost in the trenches.
Mm-hmm. And
if the trenches are an issue, you need to fix that. Now, in terms of Najee Harris, he has brought a spark. He's a guy that he brings that threat that Le'Veon Bell brought when he was here in terms of being able to catch out of the backfield. He was with Nick Saban, so we know we could trust him in terms of Alabama in general on offense, but especially you look at the track history that Alabama has with running backs. That's a guy that you can't trust. That's why when the official pick happened, I said, okay, I will live with this, and I'm going. I'll stay positive. And don't get me wrong, he's looked great.
Oh yeah, he's looked really good. He's just running behind a crummy offensive line that can't get him any room to work, and it's like it's getting better. So
and I think that's one thing that's nice, and that's why you're starting to see the offense click a little bit. You guys had the same exact situation that we did with Denver. Statistically, they were one of the best defenses in the NFL. Both those games, they did not look like that at all.
Oh God, no! Those guys. Fangio's not getting any pressure at all, and it's hanging his back end out to dry.
Yeah, Von Miller was a guy. He said in a press conference against you guys he was going to kill whoever. Obviously, he didn't even finish the game, and I think that's where you also have to give props to Blake Hance, who's a guy who's looked great, and he's a guy that he could play multiple positions, and he has looked great.
Oh God! And again, it's back to that conversation we were having earlier. There's a reason why Bill Callahan is getting paid a boatload of money, and it's so that he never leaves because he can just take these guys and work with them and give them time and build them up. Mm-hmm. All right, other pits. I'm trying to think if there's something else. Okay, so the Najee Harris thing, we covered that one. Everything else with Pittsburgh is. Oh, I know. What's your theory of why Pittsburgh is able to draft so many good wide receivers?
I don't have a theory. I think they're just certain teams are very good when it comes to drafting wide receivers, and they can look at guys. And I think for wide receivers, it's a situation of if you have a good culture and you have a guy that's just willing to put his head down and work, I think for the most part you have a quality guy. And obviously in 2019 in the second or third round you draft Deontay Johnson. 2017 in the second round you draft Juju. 2020 you draft Chase Claypool.
Yep.
And before that they got Antonio Brown in the 5th or 6th round. Before that, Hines Ward.
I mean, like, the thing with Pittsburgh that has just blown me away is how it's like, okay, this receiver's gone. All right, here's the next one that's unbelievable. Okay, there goes Antonio Brown. Oh, look, here's Juju and Deontay Johnson, and here's Chase Claypool. And it's like,
and James Washington, we gotta forget, who has gotten he's gotten limited touches on the field, but he's a guy that he's a quality guy as your wide receiver 4 on this football team.
And like if I am a team, put it this way, if I'm Green Bay, I'm finding who the scout is, who's in charge of the wide receivers, and I'm just giving that guy way too much money to come in here and find a wide receiver. Like, or any other team that has had wide receiving issues, and those are becoming less and less with the way the rules are and the way that guys are developed in college and all that kind of stuff.
And I think the narrative of how wide receivers are in terms of money and teams.
Right, and it blows me away every time that I watch Pittsburgh, and it's just this perpetual motion machine that is constantly like, okay, this guy's out. All right, here's the next great wide receiver. Oh, he needs to get paid. Well, he's out. All right, here comes the next great one. Like, I don't know how you guys do it. It's phenomenal, and never get rid of Kevin Colbert. Do not fire that guy ever. Same with Mike Tom.
This interview was so good. I went 22 minutes over the time we usually go. That's how fun I've enjoyed doing this.
I'm sorry I'm long-winded.
No, you're good. No, this interview was so good. I'm like, I'm not ending this just yet. Hell no, we're not. This was good. And I do thank you so much for coming on. And I will continue to listen to Baskin and Phillips. I've always been I don't know if you remember this. And I'll draw your memory to this. 2019 or 2020, you were filling in, I think it was for Chico. We're talking about baseball, and I called in, and we were talking about ways that baseball can be fixed. And I talked about marketing, I talked about players, I screen recorded the call. I'll actually have to send it to you so you can listen back and see if that jaws your memory at all.
Yeah.
And I remember having a really good interaction with you, and I said, I really like this guy. And I've always been a big fan of you, and I hope that you continue to do the great work that you do on Baskin and Phillips, and keep this a little secret between me and you. When I hear that you have to fill in for like Baskin or Phillips, I'm like, yes.
Oh, thanks, man. That's really kind. I appreciate the kind words. I appreciate calling back in all that forever and a half ago. I mean, it's so much fun, and I am really lucky, and I mean this as heartfelt as humanly possible because it will sound corny. I love working with those two guys. There are two guys that have become very good friends of mine, and they are awesome human beings. They are as awesome as you want them. Do you think they are? They're that cool. Jeff Phelps can make you laugh on the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
Andy Baskin is fantastic. Like, the kindest man you will ever meet in your life is Andy Baskin. And
I have met him before.
Oh, and I mean, it is so much fun, and even just getting to fill in with those guys is an absolute blast, and it's an honor. Yep. So thank you for having me. This was a blast. I'm sorry I kept you 22 minutes longer.
No, it's not your fault. It was mine. I purposely decided to do this.
I had to get my Pittsburgh question.
And like I said, that's why I did it. I do want to say thank you everyone for tuning in. I do want to ask real quick. Are you able to stay off air a couple minutes? I do have some media questions I want to ask. Personal.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you have a great show, or hope you guys enjoyed. Hope to see you guys again next week. Tomorrow I actually have a new YouTube video. I don't think you know this. I've been doing a series where I react to old Browns Steelers games. I did one the last 2 days. I have another one coming out tomorrow and another one coming out on Saturday.
That's a cool idea. That's a really good idea.
I reacted to the Browns Steelers playoff game. 2020, the wild card game, the Duck Hodges game in 2019, the 2014 Week 1 shootout that ended up being the Killer Bees Were Born, and the infamous Myles Garrett game. I did react to that game, so.
As you said.
And I was actually at that game, so that was terrible. But thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I hope to see you guys again. If you are going to the game, stay safe. I know it could get very rowdy. I've been to those games. It could be very rowdy. And just stay safe, and hope to see you guys again next week. Peace out.